James Gunn has confirmed that the next Superman movie won't be a straight up sequel, so what exactly is it and what does that mean for the Man of Steel's future? This opens the door to some bold ideas. Could we see the much rumoured World's Finest movie with the DCU Batman, or a more personal ensemble piece, something like the Man of Tomorrow animated story, with lower stakes but a deeper emotional impact? In this video, I'm breaking down the sequel possibilities, the villains who could challenge Superman, and how this sets up the entire DCU. The first Superman has been a critical and commercial hit, but it's the first DCU project and we're just getting started. I'm Phil from DC Chronicle. If you love Superman and the DCU content and deep dives, hit subscribe and let's dive in. So Superman's overcome the first hurdle and hit the $500 million mark it needed to be considered a success by the Warner Brothers executive team. I personally am really pleased with the box office performance when you consider just how crowded July's been in the theatres, and there's even a chance it could go on to hit the $600 million mark, which would be a fantastic feat. The interesting dynamic in all of this is that James has said that this follow-up won't be a straight-up Superman sequel, and he's been cryptic so far in what the sequel could conceptually be. When he was asked on social media about Superman 2, he asked the fan to define Superman 2, but on the Happy Sad Confused podcast, he did rule out a Batman v Superman type movie, but was quiet when the host mentioned World's Finest, which has only increased speculation that this could be what we see. But stick around if you want some World's Finest goodness later on in this video. Therefore, there's so many creative possibilities when it comes to Big Blue's next movie outings, which I'm hoping will happen sooner than we think. In another press interview, James did say we'd see Superman within a couple of years, which does make me think that these plans are already in place. James Gunn's confirmed he will be directing and writing this movie, and an announcement could happen sometime soon. This video is going to discuss what is and isn't feasible, what ideas really could get this franchise to the next level, where we do get a successful, connected DC universe. I mean, imagine that. Let's quickly rule out some ideas I think are off the table just based on what we know and James Gunn's comments since Superman was released. Firstly, the Justice League. It's just too early in the DCU timeline to do Justice League. We've barely met the new Superman. Most of the other heroes like Batman, Supergirl and Green Lantern are still being introduced. A Justice League movie needs real build-up. It's a climactic event, it's not a second chapter. And James Gunn has structured this Gods and Monsters phase carefully, and it's far more likely a Justice League movie would serve as the big finish to this phase, not the immediate next step. Then there's the Authority. This one is much trickier. Early on, it looked like the Authority were going to be a big part of the DCU, and the supporting role from the engineer in Superman seemed to hint that we were going to get a future crossover there. But since then, James Gunn's tone really has changed. In a recent interview at San Diego Comic-Con, he hinted the Authority movie might be off the table entirely. If that's true, then a Superman versus the Authority story, which sounds really cool, especially if it's based off of the story from a couple of years ago, could have been probable at one point, but that's probably not where we're going next. I've got two main sequel concepts. First one is World's Finest. The hot rumor is that we could be getting a World's Finest team up with Superman and Batman. Again, whilst James Gunn has been cryptic, he hasn't outright denied it, which he often does. He'll deny fake rumors all the time. So I do think this could be the one. If James Gunn does go down this road, in my opinion, there's really only one place he should look for inspiration, which is Mark Waid and Dan Morrow's World's Finest run. This title's set in the mainstream DC continuity, but at a much earlier point in its timeline, and it's been a huge success, and it's actually been my personal favourite series of the last few years. I love the storytelling, the dynamic between Batman and Superman, and Dan Morrow's artwork as well. There's also a spin-off series set in the same world of World's Finest, Teen Titans, published from 2023 to 2024. Now, this works great because what the Superman movie, along with Creature Commandos, has shown us is that this DCU is alive with characters and anyone could feasibly show up, meaning James Gunn can take advantage of this and use some characters that turn up in a movie adaptation that seem a little bit out of left field, but I've shown can work if you think about the Metal Men in World's Finest. World's Finest also heavily features Supergirl and Robin as well as Metamorpho. This is great because we already have Supergirl, we already have Metamorpho. They can reprise their roles. It's also well known that this Batman is going to join this universe with a fully fledged Bat family, as we've seen in the premise for The Brave and the Bold. So introducing Robin in this movie could be a great idea to set up The Brave and the Bold, assuming the sequel releases first. There's also another element to the World's Finest story, which is the character of Boy Thunder. Now, I don't want to give anything away because I strongly recommend you read the series, but we do know James Gunn likes to take unknown characters, use them in his movies, and Boy Thunder could be a great inclusion. It could also be a great way to show this Superman as a mentor figure with someone who he feels responsible for. Now, I could talk about this series forever. There's ways we could introduce Mr. Mxyzptlk, Batmite, or even go to the Kingdom Come universe. Are you a fan of this World's Finest run, and do you think it could be adapted into the DCU? Let me know your thoughts down below. My other idea was an ensemble Man of Tomorrow style piece. If you wanted to keep it a little bit more low stakes and emotional and focus on Superman's early years, there could be an adaptation in the style of Man of Tomorrow and that animated movie, which I know I could hear people typing it now. The Tomorrowverse, it ended up falling a bit flat, but it really started off strong, and I remember really enjoying Man of Tomorrow when it was first released, and at the time thinking it could make a really great live action movie. It would need some adapting as it is largely an origin story, but it could work well as more of an ensemble movie, which we know James Gunn's strength is these movies with lots of characters, with lower stakes but an emotionally rich story focusing on Superman as a hero for individuals, not just the planet. It would also be a great way to maintain Lex Luthor as the main protagonist of the movie and further establish Lex as this alien-hating xenophobe who's obsessed with taking down Superman. It's also long been said that we need to introduce more classic Superman villains onto the big screen, which this would be a great way to introduce Parasite, as well as Superman meeting Lobo for the first time. Parasite, I think, would work so well. Another James Gunn trope is these kind of sympathetic body horror characters. He does this really well, so a James Gunn take on Parasite would work so well for the sequel. Plus, given the excitement for Jason Momoa's Lobo, I'm expecting him to be a big part of the DCU, maybe even getting a spin-off with Crush, his daughter. So putting him across from Superman would be great for Lobo, and we'd get to see more of that brash personality that makes him so popular, as well as also reinforce that he is actually a villain. He really gets up to no good in the Man of Tomorrow story. He's responsible for the janitor being turned into Parasite in the first place. This would also be a great way to introduce Martian Manhunter, a character we've had a few teasers of. We've seen the pictures of the Chocos, but we're yet to see him properly. I do hope Martian Manhunter is a big part of the DCU. He's one of my personal favourite characters, and including him could establish the relationship with Clark and John Jones, setting up their relationship for a future Justice League. I do still think we could get a Justice League International type group in this universe as well. This could be a launching point for that, or Martian Manhunter's own series, because he does end this movie. He goes into space looking for other Martians or Kryptonians. So did you enjoy Man of Tomorrow? Do you think it would make a good live action movie set in the DCU? Let me know. Drop a comment down below. Now let's talk villains. And there's one that's always mentioned when we discuss Superman sequels. Firstly for Man of Steel 2 back in the day, and now for Superman 2, Brainiac. There's no way I could make a Superman sequel video and not talk about Brainiac. He's so overdue for a big screen appearance. I've said it before, but it's crazy to me how we've had Lex Luthor so many times, but then we've never had Brainiac. So lots of people do like Brainiac as a Justice League villain who could end a phase and be a Thanos style character in the DCU. I personally don't like this approach. I've always preferred Brainiac as a Superman villain, a bottle collector who has Kandor in a bottle on his ship. This could work so well in this universe. I'd love to get this Superman to be able to interact more with Krypton and discover more about it, especially now we know that his parents' message and his parents intended for him to take over Earth. I'd love to see it played out, how that would impact his relationship with Krypton and with his Kryptonian heritage. As well as the cinematic battles that Superman could have with Brainiac would be epic. We've talked a lot about the emotion and the humanity of this Superman, but of course we love the action scenes and the battles, and the possibilities are endless for amazing sequences that really would blow you away. If you go into your theatre and you're watching it on IMAX, it'd look amazing. Do you have any Brainiac stories you'd like to see on the big screen? Let me know below. And I've mentioned him before, we can't talk Superman without talking Lex Luthor. He's an important part of the story, and Nicholas Hoult did a great job in the first movie. As I've mentioned, we have seen a lot of Lex, so I'd like a Superman sequel to include Lex as this manipulative mastermind, always kind of messing behind the scenes, getting involved in multiple projects like Peacemaker, Waller, or even the Bane Deathstroke movie, where we could build to a Legion of Doom in the DCU. That would be amazing. This for me is a great way of using Lex rather than always being the main threat to Superman. Instead of that, he prods and he pokes and he picks his moments to go after Superman when he's at his weakest or is most distracted. I've discussed how these characters should grow as the DCU progresses in previous videos, and I'd love Lex to grow into this ultimate puppet master, more akin to like his comic version or an animated version. Something like the Clancy Brown version of Lex has always been one of my favourites, and seeing this Lex morph into something like that would be incredible. Truth be told, there's so many ways this sequel could go, and that is so exciting. As a fan of this universe, we've hit the ground running with this Superman, and I do hope we can increase the threat level, have some escalation, and expand the DCU's universe building whilst not forgetting the appeal of this Superman and that he is hopeful and grounded. My personal interpretation of James Gunn's comments about this not being a straight up sequel, I take it as there's more of a team up element to it, right? And for that reason, I do think the best choice for a sequel would be the World's Finest team up, and I would love the Mark Waid adaptation. We can use this as a jumping off point for so many characters and really build out a universe whilst focusing in on Superman and Batman's relationship, as well as introducing characters like Boy Thunder, Mr. Mxyzptlk, who could test Superman's character and his mind, not just his strength, and show him in a more leadership type of role as we get to kind of Justice League and Superman being the leader of the Justice League. Man of Tomorrow would also be great. We have a chance to tell an emotional story which could resonate with fans, as well as having a sympathetic villain like Parasite. And instead of introducing a bunch of new characters, we could focus on Martian Manhunter and Parasite and really establish these characters in the DCU, as well as build on Lobo's appearance in Woman of Tomorrow and keeping him fresh in the DCU. Either way, I would like the focus to stay on Superman saving individuals amidst higher stakes and maintain his relatability against new challenges. And then, after Superman 2 or World's Finest or whatever this is going to end up being, we can start the build to Justice League, which I do think will be the climax of Gods and Monsters. Whether it's a New Frontier adaptation, I think is quite likely, or if it's something else. We need the League in this universe, and we can hopefully start to see some real build. We've got Lanterns coming up, it looks like we've got Wonder Woman coming up, Brave and the Bold. Then the hype for the Justice League can really begin, and it'll be earned. It won't just be thrown together, but that's a topic for another video. So, which Superman sequel would you want? World's Finest, Ensemble Piece, Man of Tomorrow, or would it be something else entirely? Superman, Supergirl team up maybe? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see your ideas. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, check out my other videos. They are linked on screen now.